Welcome to the QBC podcast, where we explore new paradigms in health and science that have a meaningful impact on our day to day lives. I'm your host, Meredith Oak, a curious coach and mom. I started a journey to overcome chronic fatigue and found myself in a whole new quantum universe. I believe new research shouldn't stay locked away in an ivory tower, and that wisdom can be found in many places and understood by all of us. To keep in touch with this podcast, the QBC free community, our episode guide, and all the show notes, please visit qbcpod.com, qbcpod.com. Let's get together to create the future we want to live in. One of the many beautiful things that's happening in the evolution of the new paradigm approach to health is that it's becoming harder and harder to compartmentalize practitioners and put them in one bucket, because new paradigm practitioners are opening up and becoming interested in learning and getting trained in modalities outside of their specific designation, which is great news for the patients and people seeking healthcare. And my guest today is a really great example of that. Dr. Michelle Jeffries is a board certified dermatologist. She has been practicing dermatology for 15 years. And she's also a board certified integrative physician. But it doesn't stop there with Michelle. She has a master's degree in psychology, and she holds several certifications in mind-body medicine, including a 2-year mindfulness meditation training with Tara Brach and Jack Cornfield, and of course, a certification in applied quantum biology. So Michelle is a beautiful mix of all of the different potentialities that the new paradigm has to offer. She has a medical degree from a standard medical school, and then on top of that, she has layered on all of these other more quantum approaches. So Michelle and I had a really fantastic conversation about her journey to where she is in her sort of unique place in the world. She has a standard dermatology practice by day, but she also has a non-standard offering, which is available virtually. And you can find that at skinclockmethod.com. We'll put the link in the show notes. But I know you guys are going to love this chat with Michelle. This is like your favorite thing. Well, we've in the old stuff and the new stuff and the really new stuff and blend it all together. So enjoy my conversation with Michelle, and please do check out our brand partner at bondcharge.com, where you can get all of the things you need to maintain your circadian rhythm and get your infrared light and all of those things. And also, I want to mention our other brand partner, LifeWave. If you go to qbcpod.com, there's a little page on there that says patches. And I've been using these patches on myself. I think I'm getting younger. I don't know. Write me and let me know what you think. But it seems that way. So I'm going to keep using them. I'm feeling better than I ever have, having integrated these into my complete approach to health, which is, of course, has lots of other components as well. But the patches have become foundational. So go to qbcpod.com and click on patches, and I'll send you an email with some more information. I know you love the research, so I'll send that to you. And enjoy my conversation with Dr. Jeffries. Dr. Michelle Jeffries, welcome to the QBC podcast.
Thank you so much. I've been so excited about this conversation.
So have I, because we have never had a dermatologist on the podcast, because you dermatologists are the toughest people to find who are willing to acknowledge that maybe it's okay to go outside without SPF 9000 covering all of your skin. So I appreciate your open-mindedness.
Yes. There's definitely some open-mindedness. We're not all closed-minded, but yes.
So let's start how you got into your journey and how you came to focus on skin. Because you started out studying something else, is that right? And then you...
Oh, yeah.
Tell us the story.
Yeah. So I always tell my patients that I wasn't born a dermatologist because I feel like sometimes when they're there, they're intimidated and they're like, oh, like she's always been sun protected and she's, always done these things a certain way. And, I wasn't like I tanned. I used to lay out in the sun. My dad and I used to compete for tans when I was younger. I did the tanning beds, I did the whole bit. And so just to kind of ease the comfort of, patients and things, like I'm a real person. I've been through those things. And I mean, my journey into medicine was kind of interesting to start with. I had this like kind of odd fascination when I was younger with the encyclopedia and that human body section where it had those clear pages. And I would sit watching cartoons, thinking like, I'm gonna understand how all this works. Like, this is what I want to know. And I was like 7, 8 years old, so it was kind of weird. And then, I went on with my life, and I had some skin issues. Like I had acne, and I would get hives and things like that. And I thought if I was, going to be a dermatologist, it was like adults only. And I was kind of interested in kids. And as I was journeying to go to medical school when I was in college, I had my grandma pass that was very, very close to me. And then like my first love of my life passed suddenly too, the one I thought I was going to marry. So I was like, okay, I am not ready for life death things. I don't think I can be a doctor. Like I got to regroup here completely. And so I went into psychology. And then as I was going through psychology, I was like, okay, like I like all of this, but I still want to know about the human body. So I was taking all these classes and, doing anatomy classes in my spare time when I was in grad school in psychology. And I was like, there's something here. And I was trying to figure out like what kind of doctor do I want to be? I always had this perspective of the person as a whole person. Like you can't separate out the different parts. And so I really resonated with osteopathic medicine. So I applied to osteopathic medical school and I was like, okay, if I get in, I'll go. And if I don't, I'll just continue my career in psychology. And I got in. I was like, great. Okay, I'm going to go and I'm going to, be,
Cool. Could you
go
just
to,
explain osteopathy a little bit? Because
oh, sure.
I've learned from
Yeah.
moving around the world, depending where you live, it's like in some places everyone's like, oh yeah, go to an osteopath, and other places they're like, what is that? So
Right. Yeah. So it's all of the same medical training as an MD, and then we have a different perspective on the body. So kind of like the come from of where all of the training and the teaching that you learn about the human body, it comes from this place that the body does have ability to heal itself. And that if we can tap into that and support the body, it can heal itself. And then the other principle that just really resonated with me was that everything's connected. It's not like your muscle skeletal system is attached to the muscles and attached to the fascia and attached to the organs and attached to the skin, and everything kind of moves as a unit. So if they're, let's say, just like from an orthopedic standpoint, if there's a problem with the shoulder, well, maybe there might be something in the neck or something in the back or something in the knee or something in the ankle or something else going on with that area. Maybe it's related to the organ systems that are going there. So it's just that perspective really, really resonated with me. So we get training on hands-on techniques of where we
so
maneuver the
osteopathy is hands-on, but there's a medical degree underneath. Oh, I didn't
absolutely.
actually know
Yeah.
that. I thought it was like
Oh,
chiropractic where it's its own separate thing without
no, it's
not attached to
everything.
anything else.
Yeah.
Oh, fascinating.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's why it just really resonated. I could do all of the
Mhm.
whatever subspecialty I wanted to go in medicine. If I wanted to be a surgeon, if I wanted to be, a cardiologist, if I wanted to be a pediatrician, whatever I wanted to do, I would have that perspective and that hands-on of touching the body and knowing how it works, and then just that perspective of it being holistic. So it was like, sign me up. I'm ready. That's what I
Wow.
want to do.
And was this in the United States that you studied this?
Yes. So I live in Arizona, and so all of my training has been in Arizona in the U.S. So there is an osteopathic medical school here. The first graduating class was the year before I started, so it was a long time ago. But yes, yeah. So all in the
Okay.
U.S.
I only asked because I lived overseas and
Yeah.
I lived in Hong Kong, and there were a lot of practitioners there who came from Australia. and they were all like osteopaths, and I had never heard of it. And I was like, how have I never heard of this? It's amazing. And they said it really depends where the schools are. So I guess in Canada we have naturopathic but not osteopathic. And I didn't realize the Southwest had an osteopathic college. So that's amazing.
Mhm.
Because I've Googled around, and I'm now in the Northeast of the US, and I've Googled around for osteopaths, and it's like, no, that's not a thing up here. I can't find any. So
Oh, interesting. Yeah. Yeah.
maybe I should look harder. But I'm super intrigued that exists. So that's amazing. Okay, so you did your full medical training with the osteopathic layer. Okay, let's keep going.
Yeah, and then I was gonna go into pediatrics. I kinda had a curiosity about dermatology, but kinda like I said, I didn't think I could also work with kids, and I wanted to subspecialize, but I didn't really know much about it. I was like, I'll just go into pediatrics and see how that works." And then my last year of medical school, after I had, kind of committed to doing pediatrics, I found Dr. Ron Hansen, who is the author of the textbook of pediatric dermatology, and he was at Phoenix Children's Hospital, and I did a rotation with him. And it was like our first patient. We went in and we saw this little boy, and he had a rash. And the way that Dr. Hansen analyzed the rash and went through the possibilities of what it could be and what might be going on with it and how it could be linked to other things and, all of that, it just like, it was how I thought. It was literally like everything inside my body resonated. My intuition was like, oh my gosh, this is your thing. You got to go into dermatology. And then it was like, okay, how am I going to do that? I mean, to go into dermatology, it's like you have to be top of your class. It's very, very competitive. People plan for this their whole medical school career. Like, how the heck am
Oh,
I going to?
really? I
Oh,
did not
yeah.
know that about dermatology.
It's
So it's
very
super competitive.
super competitive.
Oh, okay. So you're
Yes.
like last minute, I I want to do this, but it's the
Right.
one because like going into investment banking or something. I have
Right.
friends who did that and they started planning like 10th grade.
Totally. Like, how am I
Okay.
going to make this happen? And then it's kinda
Okay.
like, the
Interesting.
universe always, like, has your back, I guess. It just, like, if it's meant to be, it kinda opens the pathways. So, I shadowed Dr. Hansen as much as I could in medical school, and I got into pediatrics. I got into Phoenix Children's, and I was like, "Okay, I'll do pediatrics first, and then I'll just figure it out." And in my first year of pediatric residency, I got a phone call from, the osteopathic derm residency in Phoenix. And they're like, "Hey, we have a spot. You have to give up your pediatric residency, but we'll give you a spot in our derm residency. You have to apply. We have to like go through all the things, but we want to see you apply and see what you can do." And then Dr. Hansen was starting a pediatric dermatology fellowship. And he was like, "Okay, we can actually do your fellowship and we can merge it and we'll work
Oh
together.
my
We'll do it
goodness.
together." And I was like,
Michelle.
"Oh my God." I mean, just like the
I
energy
have
inside me was
chills. I have
buzzing, right?
chills.
And like, how does that happen? And it was like, okay, I committed to this pediatric residency. Like that was hard to break that promise, but I knew that this was the next step of what I had to do. And so I went through the application process, the interview process, the whole thing, and it all fell into place. So I was simultaneous. This hasn't been done before, and it hasn't been done again. So it was a simultaneous pediatric dermatology fellowship with a dermatology residency. And it was expanded to 4 years of training instead of the typical 3 years of derm residency after your intern year, and then a 1 or 2 year fellowship in pediatric dermatology. When I started this, pediatric dermatology was a 2 year fellowship you had to do after dermatology, and then they changed it to one. So it was kind of like this magical synergistic like pathway opened up, and I was like, okay. And Dr. Hansen worked closely with Mayo Clinic, so I was able to go to Mayo Clinic and get some of the dermatology curriculum and sit in on that education and that training too. And then the osteopathic, dermatology program was fantastic. I got to learn the osteopathic way of looking at skin and treating it. And so it was a beautiful like
Wow.
unfoldment of something I would have never guessed would have
Yeah.
happened.
Could you explain the osteopathic approach to dermatology versus the regular approach?
Yeah. So in our training, we did all of the traditional things that you would do in dermatology. So we would do skin surgeries, biopsies, prescribing medications, and all of that. But we would try to also put into perspective what else could be going on from a holistic standpoint. And were there other modalities that we could bring in for this patient to support? And then also recognizing just the psychological impact of having a skin issue where everybody can see your health issue and just really like understanding that component. And I think that was what really brought it, kind of to the surface for people is like, okay, we understand there's like this other part that maybe brings shame or, anger or frustration or things like that. There are a little bit of some osteopathic kind of manipulation techniques that kind of move the fascia or move different things, but we didn't get a lot of that in the training. It was very much more focused on addressing things because they were already so advanced, and we had to kind of take it where people were at that point where they had already full-blown psoriasis all over their body and skin cancers here and there and everywhere. So it was great, but it was just that philosophy, that understanding, that connection to the person in front of you.
Okay, so the osteopathic model is more holistic. You're looking at, as opposed to just like, let's treat this symptom, what's going on with this condition. It's like more of a systemic look at where it could have come from.
Right.
Is that
And
okay?
I think most skin disease is like that though. It's not
Mm-hmm.
it's not just always a skin issue. There's more to it.
Yeah.
And I think as time has evolved, I mean, this was 20 years ago. Most MDs are on board with that understanding. Like they're starting to see those things. So it's not so different anymore. There's definitely a coming forth of an awareness of there's a lot going on. And what's beautiful about dermatology is it is a bit of a window into what's going on internally. And even traditional dermatologists are trained that way. We're trained, in traditional dermatology because I was exposed to that training too of this is related. There could be a systemic disease. It could be related to a medication. There can be other things going on. So that's the beauty of the skin is you can see things and you can treat them and then you can see them get better. It's all right there, you know?
Yes. And I'm reminded, I know when I first started, like many, many years ago, reading about mind body connection and, all, all of the things, there seemed to be an accepted belief in that world that I think the line was something like the skin is the first layer of exteriorization of something happening, like an emotional disturbance or something happening internally. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah. So it's kind of like, we have this outside environment and we
Mm-hmm.
have this internal environment. And the barrier between it is your skin. And so and there's connections to the internal environment from the external environment. And so this is where, about a decade ago, I was learning about leaky skin and I was doing functional medicine training too and leaky gut and all of that. And it was a lecture where I was sitting in, it was like my first functional medicine lecture, and they were talking about leaky gut and all of the pathways and the immune system responses and everything was just like eczema and leaky skin. And I had the biggest aha moment. And I realized like our external skin, where it kind of meets the inside is like when we go to our mouth. And then the inside of our mouth to our throat. And then we have our inner skin, which is our gut. And so there's this
Oh,
like
God.
connection of everything.
Of
And,
course.
our eyes, I mean, there's just like, and the skin's great at creating a barrier and doing that. But sometimes we do things outside of our skin and the barrier's disrupted and things come inside. And so there was some data in the past several years about peanut allergy. And could it be related to what's on the skin? Not necessarily eating peanuts, but could it be on the skin? And could it be vice versa? And could it be this whole thing together? And of course it is, right? And so there's just these connections. And sometimes there's like I don't know, like a seasonality to your skin issue. And so sometimes there'll be something where things only happen a certain time of year. And the question to ask there is, Well, when it first happened, what was going on in your life at that time? Was there something that could have triggered an emotional or traumatic response? And going back to that, and then there's like a memory. And then when that season comes up, like, okay, are we having a seasonality to it? I mean, certainly there can be issues with, environmental allergens and pollens at a certain time, and if it's an allergy thing, but could there be a deeper link there? Could there be something where there's something that happened, our body anchored that memory, and we know a lot more now about trauma response. And then it only comes out when maybe those, energies of whatever was going at that moment kind of seem more aligned. And then we realign to that and it comes out again because we haven't quite addressed it fully. So that's part of it.
Wow. So that's so interesting. So Steve, you would agree that, with that kind of thesis that evolved, I don't know when, that the skin, often if something shows up on the skin, it's like, I think, sorry, I'll finish my sentence. Often if it shows up on the skin, it's like your body's first attempt to like show a signal that something's going on. And if we use a suppressive agent, I think it was a homeopath that told me this, now that I'm thinking about it. It was like, it shows up on the skin. And if we use a suppressive agent, whatever was trying to exteriorize that way gets pushed back into the body and goes and does some other business somewhere else or something along those lines. Is that like, how would you, what's your, you have such a body of research in all of the different areas. Like, I'm just curious how you could break down like even further for us to understand like what the skin's role.
Absolutely. I think there's truth on all of it, on all
Okay.
the sides. And that's kind of where like understanding the both and being
Mm-hmm.
open and curious to all of the possibilities instead of one way of doing it. And that's the correct way. And that's the only way to do it. And there's another way of looking at things. There's multiple different experiences and realities of it all. So when we have something showing up on the skin, it's a signal that something's going on. Sometimes it can be just an external thing. Sometimes it can just be in the skin because the skin has its own immune response, its own immune system. It has its own hormonal system. It has its own HPA axis in the skin. Like it can just be in the skin. However, we also know that everything's connected energetically and physiologically. So there can be different signals coming up at that same time. So if we treat the skin, does it push things back in? I don't know. But what usually happens when people come and see a dermatologist or someone to help with their skin is like this is disturbing them in some way. It's
Mm-hmm.
either itchy or growing or bleeding or destructive. So if we can at least help them with that, and then if there is something inside that they can work on and do those inner links and do that inner work too, it's synergistic. It's not just, okay, we're going to dampen the skin and that'll cure it and that'll be done. That sometimes is the case, but not always. And then sometimes there's something inside that keeps coming up. And then could we address that on a deeper level? Could we do a deeper level of, functional medicine testing and see like what is it underneath it? Is there, an energetic thing that can be treated energetically underneath there? Absolutely. But when you're coming to a dermatologist, it's like, how can we fix this external thing and do that while you're working on the internal thing? Are there
Right.
internal things we can do in dermatology? Absolutely. There's so many things that we can do from the inside out to kind of help those pathways calm and help them not be so cumbersome and symptomatic. So it's like, why wouldn't we want a little relief from what's happening in our skin as we're working on those other things? Why can't we have it all? Why can't we do
Yeah.
both? Why can't we work on it all? I guess that's always, kind of been my come from is like, well, why can't we do some medication and then do some other things if that's the right thing? Why does it have to be only medication and only this or only energetics and no medication and let it fester and you're miserable and you can't sleep at night and that's messing with your circadian rhythm and your cortisol's a mess and then your insulin level, so it's
Mm-hmm.
just can't we just come together and do it all?
I love that. Because, yes, I mean, we do have access to to some amazing medical breakthroughs that can relieve our suffering. but yeah, I hear what you're saying. But if we just focus on that, then we're not getting to the root cause. But if we are a purist and reject everything, like we might not get the relief that we need to do the work that we need to do to heal. Like it all,
Yeah.
you know.
It's asking
Yeah.
what if? What if this could help? What if this other thing that seems like so extreme and weird, what if that thing could be part of my healing journey? What if this like thing that's been around for ages could be part of it? What if this prescription actually could help me too? What if I did all it? What if I like, kind of followed my intuition about what I need and how these all can work together for me? Like that's, I don't know, just asking the what if.
It's I'm having this memory and it keeps coming to my mind, so I'm just going to tell the story. It's like super woo, but I was listening, there's someone I listen to who he's an intuitive, like that's what he does for a living, and he was telling a story that he was getting like a recurring foot fungus, and he was doing all of the natural things and all of the things to clear it and heal it, and he did like a guided intuitive session, and he got the message like this is, I forget exactly, but basically the message was like you got to put drugs on it. This is like the energetic imprint of this requires modern medicine, so go do it.
Right. Right.
And I just love
Right.
that story because he's like as woo as you could possibly get.
Right. And that's the beauty of being in the both and being open. So he was woo, and I think we're all woo
Yeah.
in some way, especially the audience listening to this too. But yeah, it's like why can't we do it all? Like what's the holdup here? Why are we struggling so much? Why are we putting ourselves through so much? And I think there is a lot of misunderstandings and misinformation about things. And I mean, gosh, coming through the past couple of years, it's like there's a distrust of things and, trying to trust your own intuition and gathering information and not knowing like what's truth, what's not, what's true for me, what's not. And like we're really just as a society figuring that out. And part of it is bringing us back to the anchoring of circadian rhythms and nature and all of these like foundational things that have been going on, since the beginning of time and, all of that. So I think there's a lot of gifts in that journey of figuring that out and the amazing people you get to meet too. I work very closely with naturopaths and some intuitive energy healers and functional medicine practitioners and oncologists and plastic surgeons and all of it. And it's just, depending on what's going on with a patient, they might need all of that. They might need a little bit of traditional Chinese medicine and acupuncture and herbalism. Plus, maybe we need to do some topical treatment, or maybe they need a systemic treatment. And maybe I'm dealing with someone that is very much into energy healing and has their energy healing that's working together, but we're coming together as a team to do that holistic piece. So,
Yeah, I love this approach, and thank you for modeling it in the world and creating a structure that is truly integrative. And in terms, you are integrating all of the things, all of the possibilities, all of the opportunities, man-made, nature, all of it. So, thank you. Thank you, Dr. Jeffries. That's a good one. I want to jump back to, you said something interesting that I hadn't never heard before, which was leaky skin,
yes.
and compared it to leaky gut. And you were
Yeah.
talking and you were saying like the skin is sort of the external layer, the actual physical barrier. As we, from a quantum biologic standpoint, like we talk a lot about how our bodies are energetically communicating with their environment all of the time. So of course, like the medium, I guess, through which they're communicating is kind of the skin. So tell me what you mean by leaky skin, how it relates to leaky gut, and how it relates, and how you now sort of see the quote unquote quantum health practices fitting into it.
Yeah. So leaky skin. So typically we have these two cells of the skin and they link together. And there's
Mhm.
different little things that kind of go in between that link them together. And when those are disrupted and open, there's a leak in that system. It's not sealed. And so the immune system will try to come there and heal it. So we might get like that itchy healing sensation. The skin cells themselves might be trying to repair and trying to like come together. And so they're trying to do different things that help those skin cells, or keratinocytes is the medical word, but just trying to get them to come together and seal up. And when we scratch it, we open it up more. And then it's like more things on the external environment can get in. So bacteria and fungus and viruses and, all the things, right? And so our body is like, okay, now it's open even more. We got to heal even more. And we get a little bit thicker. And then we start to see that thickening of the skin. So this is kind of the foundation of eczema, or, kind of like a barrier disruption in the skin, is where there's an opening. The immune system's trying to heal it, and then it's getting thicker. So eczema is also known as the
So
itch
the
that
just to
latches.
clarify, like
Yeah.
at a cellular level, the cells are becoming kind of looser
Yep.
than they're meant
There's
to
a
be.
gap. Yeah.
There's gaps. Okay, which is allowing things in that the body doesn't want. So the response is to thicken up.
And get rid of
And
it.
that's
Get
and
the immune
that's where
system
you
there.
get
Like,
it. Oh,
yeah.
okay. All right.
So it's like, let's thicken up and let's get rid of it. Let's, increase that barrier so that the body doesn't have harm. And kind of within the spectrum of skin disease, I feel like, our bodies are meant to repair and heal. And it may even have like a priority system of like what it has to do. So sometimes skin issues are more prevalent or more loud when we're more stressed out. So stress also plays a role in how our cortisol is being balanced. So if we truly were having this like extreme version of being chased by a bear and we're trying to get rid of it, if we had a skin sore, the bear would be like, no thanks, I'm good. Like there might be something going on with this prey, I'm going to let it be. So there's that stress response too that kind of almost like allows it. So there's that internal component of that. And then if there is an allergen or chronic inflammation or something else going with the body system inside that maybe isn't getting addressed, and the body's trying to have to really focus on that, it might allow, okay, well, let the skin do that. I got priorities here. I got to focus on the heart, the lungs, the muscles, like all of these other things first. So there's that component that plays a role. So then you think of, well, okay, if we follow the skin, like I said, to our mouth and we go inside, when I was sitting in that lecture, they had a picture of the gut lining, and I could have blinked and it could have been skin, and the immune system, and then the leaks in, of the, kind of the barrier of the gut, the intestinal permeability happening, and then the immune factors that are trying to heal it coming in. I mean, it was just like, okay, I see that in my dermatology textbooks with the skin. I'm seeing this here on the screen of gut health. So it was just like this aha moment of like, oh, it's not just skin, it's everywhere. Like it can happen other places. And can it just be isolated to one thing? Sure. Can it be linked to both? Sure. Can there be other things going on? Sure. It's the kind of having that, living in that realm of possibility of maybe what could be going on. And then to your point about like quantum, right? So then we get to kind of energy and quantum and the tiny particles and photons and all of the cool things that I love to geek out on, which has brought me to you and the training program, is basically there's almost like a increasing density of material when we get to the physical body. So there's a point at which things get a little bit more dense, and that's where we define as, our physical body. And so sure, there can be the gaps. Sure, there can be, the little photons of energy and things kind of buzzing around, but I think there's just a density of when we come to the human body. And then maybe those densities change as we go more internal. I don't know if anyone's really defined like the quantum energy of going in through the skin all the way into the body and what all those little, things quantumly look like. But that kind of makes sense to me. Is like there's kind of like maybe less dense in the environment of quantum, and then when we get closer to our body, there's a density, just like the computer, there's a density that creates the computer, even though we know in a quantum world there's a lot of space in those molecules and all of that. So that's kind of my thoughts on
Okay, this is so cool.
that.
All right. So then what, in your estimation, I'm not, looking for, you know, blanket truths here, but in your experience, in your estimation, what is most likely to cause that leakage in the skin? And does it, and it's so interesting to me that the exterior and the interior are such a mirror, because we're all the same. Anyways, okay. But what are some of, some, I think there's things that would come to mind, top of mind, that would cause that leakage. But
Mhm.
then what are also things that maybe we're not thinking
Yes, I know exactly what you're asking there. There's so much there, right? And all the different layers, and especially if we're talking integrative, right? So certainly there's the physiology. There's the fact that the cells are, we've shown that they're open and there's this break, and like what could have caused that? Could it be something outside in or inside out? So there's that whole thing. Outside in for eczema and maybe a leaky skin is, could there have been, maybe the barrier was a little bit disrupted and then an allergen got put on, and then the body reacted to that and it got more irritated and more irritated, and then it, recruited the immune system in the skin, and then it got so bad the immune system in the body had to come up and go. Could there be a microbiome issue where there's a microbiome of the skin, and then could that be disrupted, and then the immune system's responding to that, and all these different layers? Could it be a food, an internal that started in the gut and then, unfolded into the skin? All of these are amazing possibilities, and certainly all of them can be true all at once too. So that's the other piece of this, is it's not always like, okay, there's an irritant on my skin and I'm more prone to dry skin and eczema, and then I ate these foods too that irritated in my body. It doesn't have the micronutrients to be able to heal, and there's a disruption in the microbiome. So all of this, is a little bit of dermatology, a little bit of integrative medicine, and a little bit of functional medicine, where we can dive deep into the fascinating physiology and biochemistry of how this all works. And then there's the energetic piece of it. And this is where things get a little different and a little out there. And the way that I've experienced this with patients is that there usually is an identity issue going on with eczema. It's not everybody. So this is a hard thing. Like babies with eczema, I don't know if this applies, but there can be a subset of patients with eczema that have this leaky skin that don't know where they're defined in life. Who am I compared out in this life? Where is my definition? Where is my barrier? Where is my boundary? Who am I as a person? So I've had a handful of, people transitioning transgender that had horrible flare-ups of their eczema before they were able to communicate to their family of what was really going on with them. And, that is profound. And then once they kind of define who they are and are comfortable in their own skin and their own body, wow, that eczema calms down. And could there be like the stress physiology of it? Yes. And all of those things. But that like barrier, like, who am I? And I'm like, maybe I'm pleasing others and leaking out and allowing other people to tell me what to do and who I am. And I'm not coming from within and have this, firm boundary of me and who's me. And not everybody that's going through that is going to have eczema either. So, I mean, some people manifest it in different ways. It might be a gut thing where like they get like a really upset gut, and maybe they have loose stools when they get upset, or, everybody's different. Some people it's heart palpitations, or, it's something in their heart. So there's all these possibilities there. So it just depends on kind of what layer, I guess, you want to look at.
Yes. And yeah, I guess my question was more just about saying like, yeah, there are all those layers. And I think, back to what you were saying earlier about not like separating them and being like, okay, I have to get to the emotional cause of this. I have to get to the spiritual cause. Like it might be a whole constellation.
Right.
And depending what door you're coming in, you might be someone who wants to start with emotion and like, so you don't need medication, or vice versa. But maybe it's all, we all need a little bit of everything at some point.
Yeah, and it's also an allowance of just letting it be, letting your journey unfold. And because I don't know what your lessons are going to be, or what you're supposed to do, or where you're supposed to go, or I don't know. I see I'm going to give information and a guide and hold space and do my best to connect you with anyone that may be connected to your journey, and then it's up to you, what you have to do. And so it's an encouragement of just anchoring into what's going to work best for you, what's your journey. It's okay to make mistakes, and I don't think there are mistakes. I think it's just like we went down one path and we had a lesson and we learned and we're pivoting and we're going down something else. And so it's just it's allowing that space and holding that space for people, and letting them have their journey and do their thing. And, sometimes the answers aren't always outside. We resource, meaning finding the source within from looking outside. It kind of anchors us back in of what is right. And we come back to source inside, and then we reference, and then we come back inside and see. And then we might come out, we might be able to help people who have been on that journey too, but with the understanding that it's their journey. Everything you did isn't necessarily what they need to do too. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's such a beautiful approach, Michelle. I really love it. And yeah, I just want to talk about eczema for one more moment, just because it seems to be like such a determined condition. I know people who have young children with eczema who, they do everything there is to do, from, circadian rhythm to non-native EMFs, to food, to like
Right.
living secure home environments. And they have made tremendous progress. And still, this it doesn't seem to like be something that likes to fully resolve, or you would, even in a young child. And so I'm just wondering what you see with eczema. And that being said, I'm thinking of one woman, Angela Jensen. She did just what you said. Like, she's now studying to be a naturopath and studied applied quantum biology because she went through the ringer with her child. They
Mhm.
did an extended family trip to Mexico. It resolved. They went back home. They changed the lights at his daycare. It came back. Like, it was just so. Anyway, I just, especially for the moms
Yeah.
out there, I just would love to hear a little bit more of your thoughts on eczema in children.
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely a challenging situation, especially, as also being boarded in pediatric dermatology. It's seeing the kiddos and the moms and the parents suffering, seeing a little baby like not really able to scratch, but just like writhing around, and the parent just being like, "I've tried everything. I don't know what to do. I can't sleep." And just the level of stress and distraught that it brings to families. I've seen it impact marriages, just because parents aren't getting along because they're not sleeping and they're miserable, and they're trying from like the deepest depths of their heart to do what's best for their baby. And so it's one of those things where we don't have all of the healing things at our fingertips. We don't know everything. We don't know all the things. And so we know that there are a lot of things that can help. There are a lot of things that can dampen the response. And it's being open to all those things, and also understanding the continuum of where it is. So it's considered a chronic skin disease. So it's probably going to ebb and flow. And then sometimes there's going to be things that trigger it. You're like, okay, this was it. They had this certain food and this was it. And then sometimes you're like, okay, they had that food again and their skin's fine. And it's so frustrating because maybe that's not what it is. Maybe it's not the food. And then they're like, okay, it's seasonal. Like, there's a pollen grass or tree, doing it, and they do the allergy testing and they do the desensitization of those things. And maybe they still have a little bit. And could there be a, genetic component? Could there be some untapped things there? Yes. And so what I do in my clinic is like, it depends on where we're at with things. If we are having a full body severe flare, like, we're going to put things on the skin to dampen that. We're going to do prescriptions, and we're going to do it in a very guided, very closely monitored way to just get to the point where that being can be comfortable and it just takes the edge off of the whole entire family. And then once we know what works, what can dampen that response, then what are we going to do for longevity? how are we going to handle those flares? And so it's coming back into the clinic and seeing, okay, I had these tools and I have all these different tools. I know how to use them. This is what I did for this flare. This is how long this lasted. Okay, now let's regroup. What do we need to do for the next flare? And kind of doing that. And it's a lot of back and forth and learning because not one eczema patient is like the next one. There's different things for everybody. So what I typically do in the ones that are open is I work with a pediatric naturopath, and then I also work with a pediatrician who does some gut testing. And in some of these kiddos, we find yeast, and they do a little mini protocol, and they do great. And other kiddos, they've done that, and the eczema is still there, and we have to advance some of our treatments. So it's one of those things that breaks my heart. I know I can help. I know that I can get the babies a lot better with traditional dermatology practice and being supportive and understanding of what they're going through and seeing them regularly and kind of giving them something to use to help their skin and help their baby's skin. What I think is very effective is if I can give a mom something that they can put on their baby and it actually helps their baby, they feel like they're helping and it's like they're doing something that's making it better. There's nothing more frustrating than putting something on the skin and it makes it worse and your baby's screaming and crying and you don't know what it is. And some of the common things that I see for that are the baby products. And it's terrible. It's like we'll have like a certain lotion or a certain thing that says it's for babies and it has fragrance in it and their skin's already disrupted and then they're putting that on and maybe it's a cream and creams tend to be a little bit more burny, stingy, and then you're putting that on too and it's just aggravating the whole thing. And then as a parent, you might think, okay, I put cream on and it doesn't work, so I'm not going to do creams at all. Like it was very traumatic. I'm not going to do it at all. But maybe it's using something that's doesn't have fragrance in it and it is more hypoallergenic and it's more of an ointment, more of an occlusive ointment that seals that barrier. That's not going to burn and stain. So I think if there are any moms listening with eczema, just know there's a lot that can be done and there's a lot of caveats and not to give up. There's a lot to it. And certainly you can go down a pathway of misusing topical steroids in this way. So you want to work with a board certified dermatologist who can really guide you on what you're supposed to do. Some pediatricians don't entirely understand how to use topical steroids, so they refer you to a pediatric dermatologist. And sometimes you can go so far down this like testing and supplements and elimination that your baby ends up malnourished and not getting the micronutrients that they need. And sometimes all of it works together too. So just there's a lot of things there. And some kids grow out of it and some kids don't. And then why is this happening? Why do we have so many eczema kiddos? I mean, I think it must be something related to maybe our toxic load that we're experiencing and then our inability to detoxify things. That might be one big piece of it. So we're getting exposed to all of these different things in our environment. And then maybe we're having toxic emotions, toxic thoughts too, that we're not talking to anybody about. And maybe we're around toxic people that we can't escape, like family or, things like that. So there's all these different layers of things going on. So I think just a holistic perspective and knowing that there are things that can be really helpful. You may not want to do them first thing. You may be exploring other things, or you may do them first thing and then use the other modalities to help support as things get better. So I hope that helps.
Okay. Yeah, super comprehensive. And as you talked about, the onslaught of toxins, both physical and frequency, and how to detoxify and be resilient. Let's close out by talking about like the quantum biologic approach.
Yeah.
How does skin fit in, and how do you, as a dermatologist, recommend sun for people?
Yes. So this is a big shift that has happened to me over my career. So, being a traditionally trained dermatologist, where, sunlight causes a lot of issues in the skin. And so I live in Arizona. We have an abundance of sun. It is all the time. And so there is, something that's a common sense about it. Like we know in Arizona in the summer, we can't be out there in the middle of the day for a long time. Like we will be fried to a crisp. And even landscapers, people that work on roofs, like they cover up. So there's truths on all these sides. It's having that understanding. And but what if when the UV index is really low at sunrise and we're able to get some of the far infrared light into our eyes and our body, and there's not any UV risk there, why aren't we suggesting people go and are outside at sunrise? And then what about sunset too? So that's been a shift in my recommendation is there's definitely a benefit of exposure to sunrise and then sunset if you can. And then it's off those devices at night and going to bed on time and being able to wake up in time to go out there for sunrise. And then I learned about the UVA rise, which I thought was fascinating. That about an hour or so after sunrise, there's the UVA rise, and how that helps with our mitochondria, how it can help with thyroid health, how it can help with cortisol, and that was fascinating to me. Now in Arizona, there might be a tiny window in the summer where there's sunrise, UVA rise, UVB, and boom, we're like full UVA 8. And so it depends on the time of year. It depends on skin type. It depends on where you're living and all of those things. And so there's kind of like the nuanced approach of this. Like there might be some things that are okay for a lot of people, and there might be some things that are okay only for a small percentage. Most of my day in dermatology is diagnosing and treating skin cancer. If you are suspicious of anything that you think could be a skin cancer, go and see a board-certified dermatologist. We have a very, very trained eye. We can detect it. We have different magnifiers and polarized lights that we use on your skin to be able to see it. And so we know that UV light might be related to that, but I think there's other things too. It came down to it's one thing that maybe we can control or maybe we could do something about. And there's some other things that maybe we don't know how to mitigate or control. Maybe there is like you live in a city with a ton of pollution and like what am I going to do about it? I don't have the money to see a functional medicine doctor and get my testing and see, where my toxic load is at and do the detox, protocol. Gosh, like there's all of that. Maybe I don't know what's going on with my microbiome of my gut and, if it's leaky or not, and that's impeding my healing. And I don't know about my stress levels. Like I'm having a hard time, struggling. And so I'm inflamed all the time and angry, and I might have micronutrient deficiencies and things like that. But it seems like sun was something that, as dermatologists, like, okay, that's something that we could at least give some guidance on. It's something we can maybe control. And then what happened is there is a whole misinformation about sunscreen. Chemical sunscreens have gotten the spotlight of like, don't put chemical sunscreens on your skin. And I would say most dermatologists never even recommended those from the beginning. We've anchored into the zinc oxide sunscreens and sunscreen where you can't cover, and covering with clothing is actually number one. Sunscreen is probably number two, and then, reapplying. And so what also has happened with the industry is sunscreen used to be sunblock. And so then it blocks the sun and you're safe and you can be out there as long as you want and you're fine. And we had the FDA take that off a lot of the labels of sunscreen because that's not true. Like it gives you that false sense of security. And even sunscreen, it's a screen. It's not perfect. You're still going to get some of those UV rays in. Now, then we go into, well, if you're blocking yourself all the time, maybe that's not the healthiest. And that's where I think things are shifting a little bit, that maybe you get a little bit of sun without protection, maybe when the UV index is around 2, so you get a little bit of vitamin D. However, if you have a SNP in your vitamin D receptor, it doesn't matter how much sun you get, you may not absorb it from the sun entirely. So there's that subset of people, right? So we have all of these different like caveats to everything, I guess. I don't know where you want to go with that, but there's
Okay,
so
so yeah, super interesting. So if we are, because we talk a lot about that the sun is actually the source of life and is good for you. Now, obviously, you don't want to get a sunburn. That is not good. But how do you feel about a tan? And how do you feel about if we want to get like a really high vitamin D level in the summer for those of us who can, would going outside all day long, getting it from the sunshine?
There's interesting data about intermittent sun exposure increasing your risk for skin cancer, chronic sun exposure lessening the risk. So it's fascinating.
Right.
Now, whether or
So
not
intermittent being like, I live in Minnesota and I
right,
fly to Mexico and I lie out in the noonday sun and then I come back.
or
That's high
even
risk.
like what I used to do when I was little, it's 50 degrees. I'm gonna lay out. I was a teenager. I was gonna get tan and
Okay.
and then it's like, as soon as it's warm out, I'm out there and I'm only getting sun, certain times a year. And the rest of the time I'm like indoors and, and there's also like we're in front of screens, we're getting the blue light at night. Like there's all these like different pieces. But to kind of answer your question, so, obviously not a sunburn, but then when you start noticing the browning of the skin, then it's like the little kind of keratinocyte or skin cell. There's a melanocyte for every, let's say, 30 of those.
Mm-hmm.
And what it does, and it's kind of like, I don't know, it's kind of like an amoeba shape, I guess, is kind of how it's kind of, I think of it. And then the keratinocyte's kind of like a block. And what it does is it kind of goes over and it tries to cover it and protect it.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you have more of that network, that's when we're starting to see a tan. And then it's, depending on what is going on with your body, with your immune system, with your stress levels, with your exposures, who knows how long that can hold? Who knows how long that can protect? And then can that keratinocyte somehow, when it makes a new layer, because every month we get in a new epidermis, can it make a mistake? And does your body have the right tools in its immune system to catch that mistake, repair it? Are we doing things at night to detox and repair? Are we getting off devices? Are we healing at night? Are we adequately doing that? What is our toxic load? What is our detox pathway? How are we repairing? So certainly there might be a small set of people that, yes, they can be tan and go out and do that, but there's caveats, like we don't know. And there's a delay, right? So there's a delay in what we did when we're younger and what ends up happening later. And there is like a senescence. There is a deepening of the immune system and the repair factors as we get older because the body is trying to repair all these other things too. So then what we did earlier, is there a memory and is there something going on that gets carried on later? And we don't know how that life's going to unfold. So if we have a child who's out getting tan all the time, and then later in life, they're, live a very toxic lifestyle, there might be more at risk for things. And so it's so hard to answer the question with not knowing all of the things and all of the details and what's right. And then the photo damage, like that's real. That sucks. That's like, I mean, I would say the majority of the women I see, all ages, into their 90s, how do you help me with brown spots? How do you help me with wrinkles? I don't do cosmetic dermatology, but all of us are trying to reverse some of that photo aging that has happened. And I don't think all aging is just from the sun. It's not. There's a lot of other factors that go in it, but it's something that maybe we can mitigate. So when we are starting to notice like, okay, I'm getting a little bit of freckling and discoloration on my skin, my body's not maybe ready for this. Maybe I need to work on some things. If I'm getting sunburn, like, okay, yeah, I too fast, too hard, gotta calm down. And so there's just so much to go over there.
Yes, I totally it makes perfect sense, especially like having such an in-depth level of experience. And it absolutely makes perfect sense that there's nothing that we can say like just do this and have it not be related to everything else you're doing. So with the exception of sunrise and sunset, like it's really hard to hurt yourself with those. But during the high intensity parts of the day, it's what I hear you saying is that it really depends what the whole rest of your life is like. Are you eating real food? Are you blocking non-native EMFs as much as possible? Are you sleeping in the dark? Are you like all of these other things are going to inform how well your body can handle high intensity sun. Is that
Yes.
fair?
So fair. And also
Okay.
your mitochondrial health. So there's an
Yes.
interesting study that came out, oh my gosh, a while ago. I can't remember the year. I'm a clinician, not a researcher. But it was about niacinamide or nicotinamide and how there were two groups of people in Australia, and one group took it twice a day, and the other group didn't take it. And everybody was at risk for skin cancers that had skin cancers and pre-skin cancers. And when they looked at it a year later, there's a 23% reduction in squamous cells in the people that took the niacinamide. And I was like, oh, of course, mitochondrial health. It's on the electron transport chain. So there's something there. There's something there. So that is something that we recommend is, there are antioxidant supplements that can help you as well to help protect you. It's not all, hats and sunglasses and sunscreen and clothing. You could also do things from the inside out too. So there's all of that perspective. And then also about skin cancer. I mean, it's not just one thing. Even melanoma is not one thing. There's different types, there's different subtypes. There are, melanocytes are a type of cell that is not only in your skin, it's in your eyes, it's in your sinuses, it's in your genitalia, it's in your mucosa. So, I mean, you can get melanoma without sun exposure. There are melanomas that exist in areas that don't have sun exposure. We do know that we see them more frequently on sun exposed areas. And melanoma is a very high risk because there are variants that can break off and spread. And we've tried to figure out, okay, if it's this deep in the skin, it's higher risk to break off and spread. And sometimes that guideline is great and it's really helpful. And sometimes it's not. And sometimes things progress. And we've done all the things. And we thought it was something that was in the surface or superficial and did the things, but it spread more. So there's a lot of things we don't know about that. And, each skin cancer is named after the type of cell that grows more than it should. So a basal cell is the basal layer between the epidermis and the dermis, and it's that lining. It's the most common type of skin cancer. And I've heard in different realms of, it's nothing, you can just let it be. But there's subtypes. There's superficial spreading where it spreads. There's infiltrative aggressive where it goes down and it doesn't really look like much on the skin. It's like a little scar, but it's diving deep and it's destructive. So why not get those taken care of with a board certified dermatologist and then work on okay, why the heck am I getting these? What can I do on the inside? And then squamous cells, it's the rest of the cell layer in the epidermis are squamous cells. And we have squamous cells in our linings. So when you Google just squamous cell cancer, you might come across lung cancer of squamous cell, and that behaves very differently than skin. And then depending on the type and subtype, location, and size, things behave differently. So a squamous cell that's invasive, and we call it poorly differentiated, meaning it's kind of all over the place and not really defined. If it's on the scalp or on the lip or in front of the ear, it's a higher risk to go to those lymph nodes. But if you have a superficial one that maybe is on your abdomen or your arm, those things, less likely to break off and spread. So there's all these nuances when I hear the conversation about skin cancer or information on the different realms. I'm like, oh, there's so many things there. And it's almost like if you think of the types of skin cancer, it's like watching a movie, right? So there's a ton of different movie choices you could do or a ton of different limited series, right? So most skin cancers are the slow burners. They're they kind of slowly will grow and slowly show up. And you're like, okay, what is this thing? I don't know. This kind of looks weird. It's not dry skin. It's not a pimple anymore. Or it's a mole that's changed. It's kind of a slow burner. So we have those. And then we have the action packed. This thing's growing. It's coming up like crazy. We're going in fast and we're getting rid of it fast and things are going on. And then there's the happy endings, right? So there's the movies that, happy ending, everything's great. We got it treated. We figured out what's going on. We figured out the root. We're working on all the things and it's not coming back. And I guess this conversation can be about eczema too. But most of them are mysteries. Most of them, we don't know. We don't know how each individual got to that moment in time. We don't have all of the information of what were they eating? What was their lifestyle like? Where did they grow up? How much were they on an airplane? Exposed to EMF, exposed to UV light, exposed to toxic engine stuff from the fuel, exposed to all these things, Were they exposed to a lot of sun when they're driving because we think we're safe in our cars, but we still get sun in our cars, even with tinted windows? What were they eating? What was their life like? And so part of this is just embracing that and knowing that sometimes things are mysterious and sometimes we go out exploring and sometimes we get information back and it's really helpful. And sometimes we revel in the mystery. And sometimes that's where we land of like, I don't know how this happened. I'm going to move forward from here and go through what I need to do and find my path.
That's so beautiful. And that's a beautiful way to look at health in general, right? We really just want there to be, okay, give me the three things, give me the three things to do and I'll be healthy forever. And it just, we're on a nonlinear trajectory here. And so beautiful to hear you look at it that way, especially like you have the medical background and all of the things and you're still able to embrace the mystery.
Yeah, I think, we all have our own personal health journeys too. Like you kind of forced to at some point in your life.
Yeah.
If you haven't already, it's probably going to happen. Not to, wish on it anybody, but it's like we're here for the experience. We're not here very long. We're here to learn. We're here to grow. We're here to expand. We're here to connect. Like we're on a journey. It's like we're creating a movie here. We're a creator. What is it? How are we going to live today? What are we going to do today? What are we going to explore? What are we going to be curious about? What pathway, what doorways is that going to open up for me today? What if I watch sunrise and I'm off my devices tonight? Like, how am I going to sleep the next night? What's going to happen? And just exploring that. What is this UVA rise? And kind of looking into it a little bit. What and being willing to explore and see. Yeah.
I love it. I love it. And yeah, and to pay attention to how our body is responding. And I will just say your recommendation about getting spots checked out by a board certified dermatologist. I would wholeheartedly second that. We have a integrative family physician who supports us spending lots of time outside, but he's like, everyone should get checked every year. And if you see anything, get rid of it. Get it taken care of. So I think that's really solid advice. And I think worth just throwing that out there to our audience because we do love the sun. But that is, as you say, we're infinitely mysterious and we're just so early in understanding how everything really works in the world. So just to wrap up, Michelle, tell us about sort of where you are now with your practice. You've gone through many iterations, and how can people find you?
Yeah, so I work in a traditional dermatology practice that takes insurance in Phoenix, Arizona. It's in a suburb called Chandler. So the name of that practice is East Valley Dermatology. So if you're in the area and you just want to do a skin cancer screening and schedule an appointment, we take insurance. We do some cash pay, but it's a traditional dermatology practice. I've kind of come to a point with everything else, all of the training I've gathered and all of the things that I've learned, that coming back to just our natural cycles and the natural things and the cycles of the day, working with optimizing your circadian health, optimizing your sleep, optimizing your skincare, figuring out that there are different cycles that happen with our gut throughout the day, that there's different cycles that happen with our skin throughout the day. There's different cycles that happen with our hormones every month. There's all of these fascinating cycles. And so I've put together everything together into a concept called the skin clock method. And it's working with aligning yourself and figuring out, where am I at with all of these cycles? Where am I at with my rhythms? Where am I at with connecting my health and my body with nature's cycles? And how can I align that? And it's a 4-part series, and it works on this bigger cycle of life. And I call it the luminous cycle. But basically, it's like sometimes we need to just start with a pause and see, like, where am I at with everything? And then things kind of start to be illuminated of what's going on with us. So that first step is pausing and illuminating, where am I at with everything? I've never thought about some of this stuff before. Kind of assessing all of those different clocks, your daily clocks, your monthly clocks, and then these bigger, wider cycles of seasonal clocks. And then the next step is we have to make a step of like, where are we going to emerge? What are we going to do next? What are we going to create with our lives? What are we going to do with all of these things? How is it that we want to live? And making those decisions of creating and emerging and all of these different cycles of like, well, what do I want to do? And then the next phase is manifesting and really living into that and actually nurturing and sustaining those habits, getting into those, really syncing up, really fine tuning, really refining things. And then we get to a point where we realize, well, there might be some things I don't need anymore. There might be some things that I've transcended that maybe I don't need. And we're letting go and we're surrendering of things. And sometimes that lands us in another place of, okay, I got to pause again. I'm not quite sure what's going on again. I just let go of something that was a big deal. I got to pause again. And once you know this cycle of kind of illuminating things, things becoming emerging, things being nurtured and sustained and manifested, and things letting go, there are so many things in our lives that do that. So our breath does that. We have a pause in our breath. We have an opening of the breath. We have a releasing of the breath. We have a pause of the breath. We have that whole cycle. Our skin goes through that cycle. There's a daytime cycle. There's, a monthly cycle. Our hormones go through that as a female. Menstruating females, we have a cycle that every week we might go through a different piece of that path. The day is structured like that too. So we come from sleep where we're, pausing, and then the day comes and we're illuminating the day. We're illuminating what's happening. And then we emerge and we kind of go out into the day of what we're going to create. And the sun is rising and we're doing different things during that time. And then we're manifesting. We're doing different things midday and later in the day, and different activities and different things are going on as the sun is going. And then transcending. We're kind of letting go at night. Are we able to let go of what happened during the day? Are we, able to release that day and look for the next day? So there's all these different cycles and they merge together. And so bringing that all together is how you can manifest what I call your chrono beauty, and how you're able to align your cycles and align all of these things and manifest into who you're meant to be, aligning with all of these things. So that's what's next.
Gorgeous. So are you supporting patients to go to create their or identify their personal chronocycles?
Absolutely. Whoever is interested in it, it's foundational. It's kind of coming back to our roots and coming back to the foundations of how are we nourishing ourselves? How are we living our lives? How are we handling stress? How do we see the world? What does our come from? How are we metabolizing life? And when we talk about metabolizing food, and in quantum, metabolizing light is a big part of this too. But how are we metabolizing just life in general? And so some patients that I see in the clinic this is not aligned with them. They're not ready for this. That's not in their vibe. It's not
what?
right. And for others, it's like, yes. So it's not limited to any of that. It's open to who wants to learn this, who's ready for this, who wants to step into this level of healing. And it doesn't go against doing functional medicine things, because we need that layer a lot of times, or doing traditional dermatology and traditional medicine. We need that too, or doing energetic work. It's supportive of all of that. And it actually, if we have these foundational pieces in place and we're able to recognize these cycles and see where maybe we're off kilter and kind of realign and get in tune with that, it might make all those other things go a lot easier. It might make us more responsive to those things too. So as I've kind of like gone out into all of the trainings, and then I'm coming back home to all of those rooted things and all
You're
of those
metabolizing them.
Mm-hmm. And putting them together into
your own unique offering.
Mm-hmm.
That's beautiful.
Thank
It's
you.
so funny you're saying everything has this cycle, because I just launched a coaching program for business owners, and I was trying to think of how to articulate something, and I had this cycle come to me, and it was like momentum, which moves into chaos. It could be like creative chaos, or it could be the overwhelmed chaos, whatever, not like as a neutral world, and that word, and then that chaos pushes us to seek further clarity, and then that clarity up levels the business, which creates momentum. Which like everything is a cycle, from our breath to our business, and how beautiful you're pulling it all together.
I love what you just said, because that is another truth here, is that it keeps up leveling, like you said, and then you come around to another cycle, just like you said, and then what you do now, it builds up to that next layer and that next cycle that you come around. So just like you said, like what happens in that cycle of coaching, it primes you for like that next, and then we go through another cycle. And there's so much, I don't know, like a sense of like peace of like, oh, that's where I'm at. Here I am. I'm in the chaos. I'm in the creative
It's not
chaos.
that I'm terrible. I'm just in the chaos phase.
Right. And then, but there's something after it. And yeah, I had momentum. Like, this makes sense. Okay. And then it just like, it allows you to open and expand and anchor in, and then open and expand and anchor in. So yes, like you said that so beautifully.
Oh, this is so wonderful. I love it. I'm so glad we got to talk, Michelle. Thank you so much. And I can feel your offer resonating. I know no one's listening to us right now, but I can feel in the quantum field. I could hear everyone going, I want to work with Michelle. So just to clarify, that the Chrono Beauty piece is, you see people virtually. It's not necessarily at the clinic. That's a separate business.
It's completely
Okay.
separate. And so it's just an online program. It's going to be a series of online meditation retreats that are optimized for an optimal circadian day. And so each piece of it is going to go through one part of the cycle. And as you go through that cycle, you're going to go through an optimized circadian day. Like, we're going to have something happening at sunrise and then at UVA rise. What are we doing now? What is our skin up to now? What's our gut up to now? All of that. And so walking you through all those pieces. So it's still in the ethers of creation. And so if you join me on Instagram at Dr. Jeffries, or you go to my website, drmichellejeffries.com, or the Skin Clock Method, eventually there'll be things where you can go on the wait list and get signed up for it, but it's coming very, very soon. We're putting on some of those final touches and final evolutions of it. So thank you.
I love it. And we'll put the links to all of that in the show notes as well. I'm just for people who are like driving and will never look at the show notes. drmichellejeffries.com. So drmichellejeffries.com, or your Instagram. Thank you so much. This was a pleasure. And as you were talking, I'm like, I have 10 more questions about that. I have 10 more questions about that. So we'll have to do it again.
Absolutely. I know.
If you would like to come back.
There's just so much. I was so excited to talk to you about this podcast and all the things. There's just so much to talk about and so many layers. And I so appreciate all the work that you're doing. And I'm so grateful that I came across you as I was looking into, gosh, I want to learn more about quantum and circadian. What courses are available? What programs are available? And I was like, going to these university websites. I'm like, I don't want another degree. I just want to learn more.
So funny.
What can I do? What conferences are available? And that is how I stumbled on you. And so, so grateful. And I listened to your podcast. I learned so much. It keeps my mind open. It keeps my heart open. And I just love all that you're doing and the rabbit holes that you go on. I'm right there with you.
Thank you. Thank you really a lot for saying that, because sometimes it's just like jumping into the void, and I so appreciate your support. I can feel it, and I'm so glad you found us. Because what you're offering to the world is really outstanding. So thanks.
Well, you
Michelle.
played a piece in it for sure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This has been the Quantum Biology Collective podcast. To find a practitioner who practices from this point of view, visit our directory at quantumbiologycollective.org. If you are a practitioner, definitely take a look at the Applied Quantum Biology certification. a 6-week study of the science of the new human health paradigm and its practical application with your patients and clients. We also love to feature graduates of the program on this very podcast. Until next time, the QBC.